Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest, and this is the intro to the first Boer War. And it's going to be not an optional scenario because it's only 2 turns long. It's very quick, historically only lasted a couple weeks. So it was fought in South Africa, so Africa's making its first debut scenario-wise. Give the North American continent a break. It's been involved in every fight so far. But what this was, it began in 1880, and this was just after the Zulu Wars that the British had, and very briefly, the crux of the conflict was as the name implies, the Boers, which were actually Dutch farmers that immigrated from Europe and settled in was called the Transvaal, which is more or less modern day northern South Africa. And the conflict arose over, well, the British more or less took over the Transvaal after the Zulu War, and it was never an easy peace between the British and the Boers, because they wanted their independence, and it was further exacerbated by when England outlawed slavery. That really upset the Boers because they're farmers, but they're farmers as in they sat around and let the slaves do all the work. So when England outlawed slavery, the vast majority of the Boers' workforce disappeared, and they didn't have enough people / were unwilling to do the heavy farm work for themselves, and so it put them at risk of economic ruin. And then tensions steadily rose, and then it wasn't too long before shots were fired. So that's, it's because it's such a small scenario, and it'll go by in a blink. I'm not going to spend too much time on the hows and whys and whos of the conflict, and especially when it's an optional scenario. So yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that. No technologies this turn, because it's so short. But technologies carry forward, so there is still railroads, rifling. So the infantry will now defend at a 2 instead of a 1. So the infantry are slightly more powerful. Ironclads are removed because historically ironclads didn't really last past the Civil War. Because as more advanced seaworthy metal ships started coming out. And I think that's about it. So we'll just get into the first turn. It'll be fall of 1880. Oh, and objectives. England has to take the Bucanaland. England has to take the Bucanaland. Once again, I'm using the Finnish roundel to represent the Boers, but the Boers have to hold on to it. And historically, the British lost pretty badly, actually. Combination of poor tactics on the British side, very, very crappy shooting on the British side, and the fact they're still wearing bright red uniforms. And the Boers, who were very much excellent shots, they'd hold yearly competitions, and I mean these Boer farmers, they could shoot your eyelashes off at 200 paces. So very good shots, much better tactics. they wore stuff that actually blended into the surroundings, so hard to see, very good shots, very good ambushers, and by the end of the conflict the British had racked up about 400 casualties compared to the Boers 30 or 40, so the British got their asses handed to them pretty badly. The war ended in a truce where the British owned the land, but the Boers were allowed to pretty much do whatever the hell they wanted. So the Boers were kind of an autonomous state inside the British Empire. So the scenario is stacked in the Boers' favor. More than likely the Boers will win. If the British win, it'll be just dumb luck of the dice. I'm doing it that way, but stacking it so heavily in the Boers' favor because they're about 10-15 years after this, there's a second Boer War, and that was longer, and that ultimately decided whether the Boers would be independent or not. So I purposely stacked it in the Boers' favor to kind of push the scenario towards having the second Boer War. So with that, we'll just get into the turn. Like I said, fall of 1880, and it'll be very quick, very simple, and this scenario will be over in the blink of an eye. Hello everybody, this is Nato at the Nest, and this with the fall of the 1880 turn of the First Boer War, and just like history, the British sent a force into the Transvaal, and they were ambushed by the Boers, and they got their asses handed to them. British came in with 2 infantry, didn't hit anything. The Boers, with their 3 infantry, rolled and got 2 hits and completely wiped out the British force. So, even without doing the last turn, the Boers will win, because that 1 cavalry cannot, at best, can take out 1 of them. So with that in mind, we might as well just do it right here. So, British cavalry, nothing. Boers, and 2 hits again. So, the British were, come on camera. So, that was it. The British were completely defeated. Failed to hit a single Boerish unit. So, granted, the casualty figures I threw out, the last video, that's pretty accurate. British racked up hundreds of casualties, and the Boers not even 50. So, there you go. The Boers won the First Boer War. So, moving on to the next scenario, by several people have requested, the next scenario will be the Spanish-American War. And finally, we will be bringing some new pieces on the board. Actual pieces, not just acrylic pieces like that. But because the Spanish-American War is, well, it wasn't the first war, but in terms of American history and semi-major events, it was one of the first wars to incorporate all-metal ships. So for anybody out there that's as sick of seeing risk pieces as I am, we'll finally start bringing out some more modern stuff. So we'll clear the board. Not that there's much to clear, but we'll clear the board, retool, and come back with the Spanish-American War. See you then.
Hey, thanks for watching Axis and Allies players. Don't forget to hit a squat on that like button. If you'd like to see more videos just like this, go ahead and click on our subscribe button. You can view all of our other videos on our playlist right here on Viper and Nato, straight from the nest, coming at you from historical board games, Z-Man Games, Parker Brothers, Hasbro, and Wizards of the Coast. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next round.